Hi there, welcome to our very first ever Your Story Live from Our Stōry. For those who aren't familiar with Our Stōry, I'm Kevin September. We're in downtown Stratford, Ontario, in a space that I opened just under 2 months ago. And the whole concept here is to share the stories of our region through the artists and makers that live and create here. And we have one beside me. Paul, welcome. Your second time, and your first time here we talked a lot about your book, which you co-authored with Scott Higgins, called The Joy Experiments. And today we're going to go further back. And I think we should jump right in because we're only going to do about 20 or 30 minutes. This is going to be a bi-weekly series. And I think I'd like to start with the origins of your creativity. When did you first discover your creativity, and maybe what form did that take?
You know, there's two ways of looking at that. Is when did I discover that I could, say, draw? And I might have figured that out in about grade 3 or 4, and I remember that moment. But I could draw what was in a picture of what was in a book, and that was very interesting. But I'm not sure drawing necessarily equates to creativity. So I'm going to jump ahead quite a bit in my life, and to talk about a period when I was in art school. Studying design and advertising, and I had a project where I had to do a photo essay, and I actually thought I was pretty good, better than most of the students in the group in terms of photography. And the teacher failed me on the project, and I said, what's this about? And he said, yeah, you are better than some of the students, but you are letting the camera tell you what the picture should be, as opposed to you telling the camera what you want the picture to be. And when I heard that, I kind of said, okay, this sounds important, but I really have no clue what you're talking about. Subsequently, for further conversation and then some discovery all on my own, I realized that part of that is learning to control the apertures and the f-stops and the shutter speeds and all of that better. But part of it is actually coming into the moment of taking a picture with a perspective in your mind, a point of view, trying to figure out what story you can create with the picture. And that sometimes is about, cropping it differently, or more importantly, it might be knowing when to click the picture, because I think some of the best pictures in the world are the ones that are taken the moment before something happens or the moment after something happens. And to have this idea that you're taking an image or looking at something in life and trying to find the abstract nature of life and incorporating it into an image, whether it's a piece of art that you paint or whether it's a photograph or whether it's a story. To me, that's kind of what creativity is about, when you can start to play in the spaces of abstract life, even if your piece of art isn't necessarily abstract in the final rendering of it, but you're incorporating that element of the weirdness and wonderfulness of half-finished moments into what you're trying to say. So I think it was that moment when that teacher gave me that kind of wonderful advice about, you have to learn how to tell the camera what the picture should be.
So then my follow-up to that question, I guess, is kind of answered for me. You would be in the camp that you make a picture rather than take a picture?
For the most part, yes. I mean, the art that you have here in your gallery and store is an extension of what that instructor and that teacher told me. Now I've gone beyond kind of trying to control the camera and to pull it into using digital technology and mixed medium and everything else, so that what I do is all my art is of one photograph. Often it doesn't look like that. It looks like a collage, but it's just one photograph. And I deconstruct it through digital technology. and then try to reconstruct it into a form that captures some sort of emotion or some sort of further storytelling technique. So the art that I have, as I say, it all starts as a photograph, but it ends up not looking like that at all. So yes, I am of that camp, and I continue to try and push it further and further and further, to the point where I'm no longer having a debate with technology. I end up having a debate with the piece of art, because I think I know what I'm trying to create, but at a certain point in time, sometimes the art just starts to say, I don't want to be that. And it's kind of a argument back and forth. And when I say this, I'm not literally talking to the art most of the time. Most of the time I'm not. But it's a lot of staring. I think I spend more time staring than I do physically doing stuff.
That's interesting too, because and I'm interrupting here with
Yeah, no,
great
that's fine.
purpose.
Yeah.
I tend to do it sometimes without, but I noticed just the other day, ordered a customer. We had to take some of your art down because we had some issues with water and none of it hit your work. But to make sure it didn't, we took stuff down. And a customer or somebody in here noticed that the title on the back of your work was different than the title you'd given me for your work.
Yeah.
So it's still speaking to you.
Yeah.
You
No,
decided.
it's true. There's no time limit on when a piece of art is done, I don't think. And there's a wonderful book by Rick Rubin called The Creative Act.
Yep.
And it's a great book on just the relationship between an artist and the piece of art they're trying to create. And there's nothing in that book I hadn't sort of known, but I really loved the way he reminded me of things over and over and over. And so it's a book I own and I tell people of, but I don't loan my copy out to anyone.
I got the audio because hearing him tell you it is just so powerful.
Yes, it probably would be more powerful than even the book, I would think. But I often sort of have these debates with the artist. So what do you want to be? Because I feel like I'm lost in the piece. I've lost my mooring. And sometimes then it's just a stroke of a brush, and all of a sudden, oh, it's shocking, especially if I do extreme abstract art, how much one stroke of a brush changes the whole piece for me. And now I'm on a different journey. And then I have a period of several days where I feel like, okay, I know what you want to be. I know, and so let's try to get you to be the piece of art you want to be. And that relationship and that experience that I've just explained in metaphorical terms is my favorite part about creating, whether it's art, it happens in writing as well. That relationship between you and what you're trying to create, and the argument, debate, or wrestling match is really one of the great joys of life for me.
Okay, we're going to step back a bit on that before we step forward, and that is, when did you decide, or how did it come to be that you were going to deconstruct your photography and make them something else, or when did it go from you being photographer to being another level visual artist?
I'm not exactly sure.
You don't remember the first piece, or?
Well, okay, so what I will say is a number of years ago, at a significant birthday, which I won't divulge, I was in Montreal, and we were celebrating my birthday in Montreal, and I was walking through the old Montreal area, and I went into it. I saw a gallery with a piece of art that was, like 6 inches by 6 inches, and I thought, wow, that's a lot of money for a piece of 6 by 6, but I really liked it, and I bought it. And part of the reason why is because there was a photograph in there, but it was cut up and other things were slapped on it, and I kind of felt like, I think I could do this. This looks like a new direction for me to go, where I can get more out of what I'm capable of doing. Like, if you put me in front of, a blank canvas with paintbrushes and paint, I'm pretty crappy at it, because my eyes work kind of through a camera lens. And so that, when I saw that, that made me think, oh, maybe I can start doing some of that stuff. And when I then started exploring technology and doing some experiments and getting somewhere on it, another surprising joy that happened for me was it took me back to the skills I learned in design school, 40 years 35 years previous, where I could use an X-Acto blade and paper and had to get glue and had smelly spray fixative to put on stuff. And it kind of took me right back to that period when I was learning not, to tell the camera what.
Yeah, and
it's supposed to
discovering
be.
your
And it kind
creativity.
of viscerally took me back to that, and it was a nice homecoming for me.
That's cool. And then, was writing always there in the background with this, or did it come out of another sort of epiphany?
No, writing was always there. I remember being in high school, in my final year, grade 13, and trying to figure out, do I go to school and study design, or do I go to school and go to, to a university and study English?
Right.
Well, I'm a really bad speller. I can put the badly spelled words in the right order. Just can't put the letters in the right order.
Right.
And I was debating what to do, didn't know. And then at my school graduation ceremony, much to my surprise, because I was such a delinquent student and I didn't even bother to look at the program to see who won the awards, because it certainly wasn't going to be me, I had won the art award.
Wow.
And, actually, didn't even hear my name being called out because I wasn't paying attention to anything. So someone had to tell me. And so that gave me the nudge to go into art. But art writing was always very, very, very integral to it. When I worked in advertising, I started off as an art director, but then I moved to copywriter because I could write as good as the writers. And then I had this capability of merging imagery, words together to try to reach a more profound kind of experience. So writing has always been with me, and learned more and more the power of the social power of words. What words in the right order can do for people is every bit as impactful as brilliant art. Sometimes more so.
Okay, well then we'll go deeper into your writing.
Where do you want to go?
Was there attempts at books, or were there books before the Joy experiments?
No.
What form did your professional writing take then, I guess,
Well, I
before?
was really good at copywriting. I was good at doing, let me do a 4-word tagline. I could nail that, Great 4-word taglines. And then a strategic, 4 paragraphs to sum up the whole strategy of everything, and then to launch it into a more emotional level. I could do that. To me, and I have profound respect for people who write books. In fact, so much so because I feel like writing a book seemed absolutely impossible to do. Like, it was just, there's many things I can do in life, but there's no possible way I could ever write a book. Then had this opportunity to do it partly out of my business consulting and strategy work. And I've often felt in my business strategy work, I will use whatever medium available to deliver a strategy. And I often deliver pieces of art as part of a strategy for clients, because I believe when you're trying to get somewhere new and you want a big idea, there's a lot of abstract in big ideas, and a lot of consultants try to get rid of the abstract. And I think that's when your big idea gets really small. And so I embrace, let's dig into the abstract and use use the unknown and shape that through words and imagery to land on a great business strategy. The Joy Experiments book was kind of like that. It was the best way to communicate what we're trying to do here is actually to write a book. And so
Because Scott was going to do a manifesto. Was
I
that
wanted to do a manifesto, which is kind of like corporate poetry, and none of it was really working. And I had just finished reading a book by Chicago Mayor Ron Emanuel, talking about why he did what he did when he was mayor. And I said to Scott, you really should do a book about why you and I are trying to do what we're trying to do. We talked to a few people that felt that they could write books, and they weren't really working for us. And so it was kind of like when Genesis was trying to replace Peter Gabriel, and Bill Collins would sit there and tell all the people that were coming in to interview, this is how you sing the song. And then finally they said, Phil, why don't you
sing the
be
song?
the singer?
Yeah.
So it was, why don't I start to work on writing the book? And it turns out I was wrong. Writing a book is not impossible. It's just very, very, very hard.
Okay. Well, we're probably getting close to time. I know that these are unstructured, but we're trying to keep them 20 to 30 minutes. So we'll end with where you are now, and that is promoting the book that you've written. So if you could leave artists and city builders out there with one thing that we all should know about creativity, or we all should consider around creativity, what would it be?
Cities give the illusion that they're very concrete things. They're like mountains. You can't change cities. You can't change mountains. Look at, there they are. They are what they are, and we just have to accept it. Or you start debating small things like, parking and the roads and these things, as if those are really the things that drive the importance of a city. But in reality, cities they're not about hardware, they're software. And what I mean by that, they're about humans and humanity. And the relationship between cities and city citizens is kind of what the Joy Experiments book is about, and how it should be changing given the social, malaise that we're all in. So, how do I phrase this? I think we should be looking at our problems in cities and our opportunities in cities with an acknowledgement that the real potential is if we focus on the somewhat abstract nature of cities, which is how citizens relate to each other, how citizens relate to their city, and how that energy can be formed into a collaborative environment where we can tackle all the problems that we need to tackle. We need to tackle climate change. We need to tackle the later stages of what capitalism is struggling with, and we need to tackle with the issue of a very divided society. Cities are where we're going to figure that stuff out, and we have to sort of look at cities and appreciate them and think about them as you might a piece of art, in a way. Hopefully you understand.
Paul Kalbfleisch, thank you very much.
Thank you.
For everyone out there, thank you for tuning in, or if you're watching this later, thank you for looking it up. If you're in Stratford, you can come see some of Paul's work in person. Otherwise, I implore you to check out the Joy Experiments book that Paul and Scott Higgins wrote. It's an important book. It will surprise you, even if you don't think you're a city builder or that you really understand where you live, or even that whether or not you want to be a part of that kind of change, or that you feel you can play a part in that change. It's a really important book to read, and it's kind of fun. It's fun to flip through. There's lots of Paul's photography in there and some great writing, great ideas.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate this, and thanks to everyone who's listening to this now and into the future. Thanks.
Yeah, and we'll be back in 2 weeks with some more artists that we feel you'd be interested in their stories. So I hope you will subscribe and tune in again. Thank you.